Hi, Stephen Talcott-Smith, founder and CEO of Alogica here. Today I want to show you how to use Pareto testing in the Alogica system to speed up development and optimize the amount of test code your team writes. The goal is to save time by avoiding writing low-value code. Most developers write some kind of automated tests for their code: unit tests, functional tests, integration tests, user interface tests, etc. Many developers have tried test-driven development, or TDD. TDD is a great practice to learn how to write tests well and to learn how to write more testable code. While TDD is a powerful tool to have in your toolbox, for an experienced developer, it can sometimes feel like attaching training wheels to your bicycle. The alternative to writing tests is to perform manual testing and possibly do a QA cycle if you have QA available to you. This has a cost too. How much time will it take you to manually test? How thoroughly would QA test this? How often would your QA have to retest it in the future? In all cases, even if you have QA, even if you have written tests, you should try to test reasonable edge cases manually and correct errors yourself before letting QA find them. You want to prevent the expensive overhead of reporting a bug and then having someone go back and fix it. TDD aims for 100% test coverage. That is, your tests exercise every line of code in your codebase. Sometimes this is appropriate. More often, it is not. Here's why. If you have 100% test coverage, 80% of the value in your tests probably exists in 20% of the test code you wrote. How much time did it take you to write the 80% of the test code that has only 20% of the value? How much time will it take to maintain that code in the future? There is great utility in writing the 20% of tests that are most valuable, but there is decreasing marginal utility in writing the other 80%. Our time is valuable, sometimes very valuable. The cost of writing each test is about the same in terms of time and money for a given developer or team. But at some point on the utility curve, the decreasing marginal utility makes writing additional tests not worthwhile. Great, so we know we want to write 20% of the tests that have a lot of value. How do we know which ones those are? If you can take 1 minute to think things through before you automatically proceed to write hundreds of lines of test code, you might save hours today and more in the future. If you do this every day, you enjoy compounding returns on your increased value delivery. Here are some simple questions you should ask yourself before you write tests. Is every user journey going to pass through this piece of code? If so, write some tests. Does this feature have complex business domain logic or complicated rules specified in a requirements document? If so, you better write some tests. If an error occurs in the part of the system you are working on, what would be the impact of the error? If the impact is high, write some tests. If the impact is low, consider testing manually. How quickly could you find and correct an error and deploy the fix in this part of the system? How quickly could someone else? How often are the requirements likely to change in the future? This is a tricky one. You really have to think ahead and understand the business you are working for. Writing lots of tests for volatile code is a fool's errand. Sometimes you don't know if the code you are writing will even stick around until you've seen it in action in production. Before you begin your work, you should have some idea if you are working on an experimental feature or product or something built for the ages. If you really want to write the minimum amount of automated tests with the maximum value, focus on 2 types of tests. UI automation tests for common happy paths through your application and severe bugs that you discover when regressions are painful. And business logic. Make sure you have those tests and you are going to get 80% of the value out of your test suite. One last question I want to address. When do we want to break out TDD and write tests before we write our code? I like to use TDD in two situations. First, when I'm producing complex business logic according to a spec. And two, when I'm doing something complex and confusing and I'm not sure how or where to start. In those cases, I start by writing tests first. I hope these tips on Pareto testing will help you save time and deliver more value. If you are a professional software developer and you really want to go in depth to learn tools and techniques of the Alogica system to multiply your value and become a 10x developer, register for my free intro course at 10xdevacademy.com. That is 10xdevacademy.com. And look for my other videos on this channel or site. Thanks for watching.